we turn to John Lott, the resident expert on the subject, on, as the Post said, how many times, what can we do to prevent these shootings? And by the way, this will give you fodder for your college class and your bar arguments when they say, can't we just ban these assault weapons? Why are crazy people who haven't passed a background check able to use an automatic weapon on innocent children? It's not that simple. Let's ask John. Mr. Lott, are you there, sir?
I am. Good to talk to you again.
Well, it's kind of sad because we speak to you after every mass shooting, so I have this Pavlovian response of grief and sadness every time I see you.
All right. Well, hopefully we can muddle through. I mean, I have to tell you, I just find this whole thing so frustrating. I don't know if you can appreciate it, but I've been saying similar stuff since 1998 now about these gun-free zones. And I listened to politicians yesterday get on the TV and they start talking about background checks on private transfers. They talk about terror watch lists. They talk about, assault weapons bans. And I'm thinking to myself, do these guys care whether these things work or not? Do they care? It's like, we got to do something. Well, let's do something. I want to do something. I want to get rid of these gun-free zones that we have, that we keep on seeing these attacks occurring in. But, you take something like these background checks on private transfers. First of all, it looks like, yet again, it's completely irrelevant. There's not one mass public shooting in this century where, if this law had been in effect, it would have made any difference in terms of whether these things occur. We had talking about the terror watch list and making it look like Republicans like terrorists to have guns. I mean, first of all, it's irrelevant to what just happened. And secondly, he completely mischaracterizes what the whole debate was at the time. The whole debate was whether or not the government would have to go before a judge in order to justify banning somebody from having a gun. The Democrats just wanted some unnamed bureaucrat to be able to unilaterally make a decision on that. And the Republicans said, well, fine, the bureaucrat can make the decision, but a judge has to at least look at it and give it at least the low standard of evidence associated with probable cause. They didn't even have to have preponderance of the evidence, which is like 51% sure, or beyond a reasonable doubt, which is like 95% sure. They just said, if you're like 20% sure or 25% sure, that would be enough to ban somebody from owning a gun. But going before a judge at all was too much for Democrats. Where you have things like the assault weapons ban. We've tried this, we've been through this, we have states that have done this. There's even studies that Democrats have paid for haven't shown that this has mattered, but let's go do it again. So, and then the one thing here is you look at all the mass public shootings in Florida, whether it be the Orlando nightclub shooting or the business shooting in Orlando last year or the, Hialeah restaurant one or the Fort Lauderdale airport. All of these, including the one yesterday, were in these gun-free zones that were there. People think we just ban guns from an area and make it safe. Well, guess what? The killers like to go to places where their victims aren't able to go and defend themselves. I mean, I wrote a book. I have a whole chapter with quotes from these killers where they left diaries or other types of statements about why they chose the targets that they did. And time after time, they mentioned that they want to go to a place where victims can't defend themselves because they'll make it easier for them to kill lots of people before somebody shows up with a gun in order to stop them. I mean, I don't know how much more explicit these guys can be. If you look at these mass public shootings, over 98% of the mass public shootings that we've had since 1950 have occurred in places where general civilians are banned from having guns. So these guys may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. They want to kill as many people as possible. And they know if they go to a place where people can't defend themselves, they can kill more people. So I'm just frustrated because it's like, I listened to the commenters on even Fox last night, and people were saying, well, if we bad things will happen if people have guns and they're in this situation, cause more chaos and harm. Well, people go to our website at crimeresearch.org. I have literally dozens of cases in just recent years where what would have been a mass public shooting was stopped by people with permanent concealed handguns. There was a case just very recently in Florida at an automobile repair shop, which was crowded with people, which was stopped by 2 permit holders, where the police said that many would have died if it wasn't for those individuals. But I can go on for hours about the cases that we've collected there. They don't get national news attention. You know, one can only imagine if the people hadn't been there to stop it, what type of national news attention or worldwide attention they would get. But, you know, they still happen. And yet, in not one of those cases can these things about what might possibly go wrong actually occur. You know, and so much of this gun control debate, it's kind of like the gun control advocates say, well, this might go wrong, or this might go wrong. Well, we don't need to guess in a lot of these cases. We can go and look to see whether or not those things might happen or not.
So what's the scenario we're talking about? Are we talking about teachers all strapped across the country, or are we talking about security guards at the front? We have to get armed security in every high school in America?
No. Look, personally, I would let staff and teachers carry concealed, so nobody would know that they have it. This notion, you know, I disagree strongly with the NRA on this. This notion about having an armed police officer or someone like that in each school, I don't think makes much sense. You have an armed person in uniform. That's an incredibly difficult job. Having somebody like that, it's like somebody with a neon sign that says, shoot me first.
Right.
You know, you want to have someone who the attacker doesn't know, whose job isn't obviously security. You know,
we train these teachers. Every teacher has a mandatory training class with firearms, and then they get their weapon and they have to have it. Every teacher in the entire country has a concealed carry.
You don't need everyone. You probably don't need more than a couple on a school, or maybe a few. And it doesn't have to be teachers. It could be staff. It could be secretary. It could be who knows.
And they would volunteer that.
Yeah, they can volunteer to do it. You have a number of states right now that allow that. And none of those places have had any of these attacks. And so, you know, I understand this notion. If we just ban guns from an area, it's going to make it safer. The problem is the opposite happens. It makes these places attractive targets for these killers. You know, Ron Noble he served as Secretary General, the head of Interpol, which is kind of Europe's version of the FBI, for 15 years. He recently retired. And when he took over that job, he was a strong gun control advocate. By the time he got done, he thought that gun control was actually dangerous. Yeah, he said, look, there's 2 ways you can try to make a place safe. You can either really make it a gun-free zone, or you can let the possible victims defend themselves, because you just can't simply have police or law enforcement every place. And what he learned over time is that for these soft targets, whether it be a mall or a movie theater or a restaurant, that it's simply impossible to really make these places gun-free zones. You have these attackers plan these attacks for a year or 2 years in advance. You know, there's no way you're going to be able to stop some place where civilians can enter in and out all the time.
Even from a metal detector, you just shoot the guy at the metal detector.
That's right. There's so many ways in there. And if they're serious, they'll find a way, no matter what you try to do with those types of soft targets. And the other thing is, there's so many soft targets. You know, it's not like there's only one restaurant or one movie theater or one school that you can go after that's there. And they'll plan that. They'll look at the different options. I mean, we see this with our killers here, whether it's the Aurora Batman movie theater shooter. You know, he obviously went to a number of movie theaters beforehand. He had notes on different movie theaters. His original attack was going to be at the Denver International Airport until he discovered the amount of armed security that they had there. So, you know, you see these guys, you know, with the Charleston church shooter. The Charleston church wasn't his first target. He had gone and investigated several different options before he decided to choose that. These guys, 6 months of planning for these types of things is a short period of time for these guys.
Wow, I did not know that. Okay, last question. What is an AR-15?
An AR-15 is a gun that looks like a military weapon, but on the inside it's the same as any semi-automatic hunting rifle. If they want to,
like my 30-06 is just.
You have a gun that will fire, one pull the trigger, one bullet comes out, and then it reloads. There's 3 different types of guns. You have manually loaded guns, where after you fire the bullet, you have to physically yourself put another bullet in the chamber.
Like a shotgun.
Yeah, a shotgun would be one example, right, where you pump it to do that. And then you have semi-automatics, which the gun, one shot, reloads itself, one shot, reloads itself. And then you have automatic, fully automatic, or machine guns, which, as long as the trigger is depressed, bullets will come out.
And those are very hard to get.
Those are very hard to get. They're very expensive. They're hard to get. You don't see any murders committed with machine guns in the United States that are registered. And so, if they want to go and argue we should ban all semi-automatic guns, let's talk about it. At least that would make some logical sense. I'm not saying it would be a good suggestion. But, this notion of banning some guns based on how they look on the outside just is stupid.
Yeah. And we tried it.
Yeah, no, we tried it. We tried it for 10 years, and they had magazine size limits, too. And different states have had this. We've had lots of academic studies on this type of stuff. We've had, the Clinton administration paid for studies to be done, and nothing they paid for showed that their law that they love so much made any difference. When the assault weapons ban sunsetted in 2004, you can go back through Senator Feinstein, Senator Schumer, gun control groups were all predicting the end of the world, that murder rates were going to soar afterwards. Well, guess what? Murder rates fell afterwards. Robbery rates fell afterwards. And, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but it's just very frustrating that these guys keep latching on to things. I just wish once in a while some of these reporters would say, well, okay, so you want a background check on all private transfers and you're bringing it up because of this mass public shooting. Can you point to me, let's say, mass public shootings in the last decade that would have been stopped if this law had been in effect?
Right. Well, I think the moral of the story is more guns, less crime.
Right. Sorry, I'm really getting frustrated. I don't know, my emotions show on this. I mean, these are horrible tragedies. I just don't understand. I just don't understand what goes through these guys' minds
it's
when
sincerity.
they go.
It's like when you talk about immigration and you ask them how many illegal immigrants are there, and they have no clue, and you realize you don't really care about this because you've never looked it up.
Yeah. Look, I have to tell you, I go nuts listening to the TV. There's only so many hours I can take. I'm listening to these experts go and talk about, well, we've had 18 school shootings this year. These numbers are just completely bogus stuff. I tell you. So, to get to the 18, they include, well, first of all, it's K through college, and they're including even gunshots that aren't even on the school campus grounds. They're including suicides, so you have things like a police officer accidentally fired his gun. Nobody was hit. Well, okay, you want to count a police officer's gun accidentally going off as a school shooting? There's a 31-year-old ex-military person who, at night, pulls into the parking lot of a school out of school hours and commits suicide in his car. You want to count that as a school shooting? Is that what people imagine when they're thinking about a school shooting? A police officer accidentally firing his gun or this other? If you look at cases where a gun was fired on school property and somebody was hit with the bullet, okay, you're talking about 4 cases.
In what period of time?
since the beginning of the year over this 18 that they're talking about.
4 cases.
It's just, but it's
false data rife with virtue signaling and hidden agendas here. And it's fun to talk to you as a data expert because we realize how far we've strayed from the basic facts.
Yeah, well, it's just people throw out these numbers and others use them. And it's like nobody even bothers to go and fact check this stuff. You have 60 Minutes this last weekend. It was an amazingly biased show. I don't know if I've ever seen anything so biased. They don't even have anybody on kind of the side, pro-self-defense side, that knows anything about the numbers that they're talking to. They have the other side just throwing out these claims all the time. I guess CBS 60 Minutes can't afford a fact check.
John, we're out of time, but this has been...
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm going on. It's just I'm really frustrated.
No, it's all incredibly valuable information. We really appreciate it. Let's check in with you again soon.
All right. Well, thanks very much. People can find more at our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org.
All right, we'll check it out. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Cheers.